I can read between the lines, I ain't blind. We unwind what they're really saying, genetically modify what you're tasting. Loan you that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Program to crave the basics, keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid, you're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. It is my honor to finally hook up with someone who I've long been told is an incredibly chill, wise, and thoughtful man. And judging by his incredibly eclectic and deep probing blog, radio hour, and YouTube channel, I think I can easily agree with that assessment. Please welcome the guitar enthusiast, the critical-minded, the free-thinking, and the eclectically fascinating man himself, Mike Williams of Sage of Quay. Mike, it is so nice to have you here tonight. Thank you for coming.
Well, Lindsay, thank you. That's like one of the best introductions ever.
Oh, wow. I love it when I get that feedback. That's awesome. It's great to have you here on Rogue Ways. And I just want to pause really quickly and remind people that the best way they can support Rogue Ways is by going to subscribestar.com/rogue-ways and subscribing at any level, including the dollar level. All of you subscribers out there are awesome, and I appreciate you so much. So thank you guys for your support. And I like to, Mike, start with a pointless question of the episode, I call it. And my pointless question that I was going to ask you is, do you like rain? Do you like the rain?
Do I like rain, like when it rains out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the rain. It's good to sleep by.
Isn't it nice? It sounds nice, right?
Yes, very nice.
And I feel like you and I right now are probably both rain starved. So we would probably love some rain right now when it's blazing hot and we're dying every day.
Yeah. Here in North Carolina, what we usually get is the sporadic thunderstorm that rolls through. Just gives us more humidity.
Yeah.
And then the sun comes back out, so, and the heat index rises.
Yeah. We are usually really dry here in Colorado. And today we woke up to 73% humidity. And I was like, I don't think that's natural. I wonder where they're trying to flood next.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I was trying to determine which way the systems were moving to see if I could guess, but who knows?
Well, we know they control the weather when you look at your phone app, and they can tell you at what hour it's going to rain. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, and I was planning, and I was planning a road trip around the South, and I was looking out at the weather, just trying to sort of see how it might look at that time, and it was letting me go out 4 weeks. And I'm like, I don't even know how you would pretend to know what was going to happen in 4 weeks,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, who knows if they'll have a flood somewhere soon, but it feels like they're collecting a lot of moisture up there for some reason, because it's not dropping here. But yeah, and I have a random question for you. Maybe you've been asked this a million times, I don't know, but what is the Quay in Sage of Quay? What does Quay mean?
It's just a part of the name of a town that I live in. I live in a small town in North Carolina.
Okay.
So people think it's very, has something to do with, just being so esoteric and all that stuff. It has nothing to do with that. Nothing, zero. Sage of Quay, the sage part came from my family poking at me because I was always coming up with these theories and alternative research and, trying to have conversations. And so they would joke around and say, oh, Mike is, he's such a sage, but not in a they were, how families are, right? So they're poking.
Yes.
And so I just put the two together and it stuck. And I was saying on another show, I was with the guys from the wrestling podcast, Wrestling with the Future with Angelo. And I said, I wasn't even sure that I even liked it, to be honest with you. So for the longest time, I was thinking maybe I should just change the name. But it just stuck. And so here we are years later. And so I now that it makes no sense to do anything.
Yeah.
Keep it.
Yeah,
Right.
Once you've got your base established, changing anything would
Right.
be deleterious. So that's nice. I mean, and you are very sage-like, so I think it is fitting, and I like that of Quay. That was one of my many ideas of what does Quay mean? Is that something to do with quantum? Is it what is it? But one of my ideas was it might literally be where he's from, Sage of
Yes,
Quay.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that we can always like read deeper into things than we need to, especially in this community where we're always sort of looking for patterns and meaning and hidden things, you
Right.
know. And people can drop on this one thing and run wild with it. Who knows what sort of
Yeah, there's
theories are out
nothing
there.
very deep about Sage of Quay.
Yeah.
The
That's
name,
funny.
maybe not even me.
Oh, that's not true. Well, where do you come from in life? Like what was young Mike like? Where was that and what was it all about?
Young Mike was a good student, and mom and dad. We lived on Long Island, and mom and dad were hard workers. Actually, mom was a stay-at-home mom. Dad was a very hard worker. He's passed on. My father passed this past April.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's he was 85, and but we grew up and on Long Island, and we were, I would say, probably just a notch below middle class, maybe lower middle class. If you had to put a framework around it, and I had a good childhood though. I really did. I enjoyed playing sports. I was very good at baseball, and I played a lot of basketball and stuff like that. And started playing the guitar, I guess, when I was around, seriously around 15 or so. And I really enjoyed playing the guitar, and I was, a huge Beatle fan, and with the rest of the bands that came out of the 1960s, the British Invasion, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and all that stuff. And so then I just wound up making my way through life, and going to college, and then I did a stint with the Air National Guard, and then I graduated college, wound up working in the corporate world for over 30 years.
Wow.
And then I left the corporate world back in 2014. And I am right now, I am a hypnotherapist.
Oh wow.
I'm a master. Yeah, I am a master hypnotherapist. And I've been in practice for over 10 years.
Wow.
So I have a private practice. And that's what I've been doing. I actually was doing double duty with work, my corporate job, and getting into my hypnosis practice. And then, when I left and retired from the corporate world, I went into my hypnotherapy practice, and that's what I do today. And as far as the truth of stuff goes, I remember as a little kid reading a book called Executive Action, which was about the Kennedy assassination.
Huh.
And it was that the book was about the story, the official story, not being the truth. So maybe I was a strange little kid reading a book. I think I was in elementary school or something when I was reading that book. I don't really remember, but it was a long time ago.
Wow.
And then I started just evolving into the alternative research community. And it really actually started, Lindsay, when back in 2006, I had two moments of awakening, right? So there's two moments in time that stick in my head. One was back in 2006 when I was going through some, life challenges. And so I broke through, challenge number one there. And so I had to take stock and say, where am I going? What am I doing? What's this all about? Right? Is this all it is? And then in 2009, I had a very profound spiritual experience.
Wow.
And that really set me on my path. So it shifted my whole perspective on spirituality. I was born and raised as a Roman Catholic. I left the Catholic Church back when I was around 17 years old, as soon as I was able to drive, because it never resonated with me.
Yeah.
Never resonated with me. I did spend some time also around 3 or 4 years in what they refer to as a non-denominational Christian church. This is going back to the mid 2000s, 2007, around there, starting in 2007 through 2010. But that, when they say non-denominational, what they really mean, it's evangelical.
Ah.
So
Not
I was
not like the universal Unitarian sort of concept. But okay.
no. Although I did go there a couple of times, just a couple of times. We had one of those churches here in Raleigh, but I was with somebody at the time, and she was very Christian, and And so, I would go with her to their church, to her church on Sunday, and it was a learning experience because I got a lot under my belt as far as the evangelical belief system, which is very different than the Roman Catholic ideology.
Yeah.
And so it was. I'm glad that I did that stint. It also it was at that point that I got heavily into researching Christianity and the history of Christianity.
Mm.
And so I got heavily into it. I was reading all kinds of books and just getting into the critical analysis of the Bible and stuff like that. So in any case, that led to other stuff. They're taking a look at the moon landings, and 9/11 was a big one. Like everybody else in the beginning, I bought it.
Yeah.
But then as time elapsed, I was like, okay, something's really not right with this thing, And the thing is, when we get into the alternative research and the conspiracy research, a lot of times I found that it's hard to really pinpoint when exactly was that turning point, because it's sort of a process that evolves.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You
Totally.
kind of evolve into it. You find one thing, and you're not even knowing at the time that you're looking into alternative research. So as an example, when I was looking at Christianity and the history of Christianity, I had no clue that what I was really doing was looking at an alternative view, alternative research of the religion, right? I was just very intrigued by it. And like I said, I read all these books. I still have them all. And then that led to something else, to something else, to something else. So I explained to folks that it's like walking a staircase. So you take the first step, and then you're like, okay, well, that's very interesting, because inevitably what happens is whatever you're looking at kind of leads you into something else. And then you go take a look at something else, and it builds from there. And I guess it was back in, I think it was 2011. I think that's when I first started the blog, 2010, 2011, around there. And because in 2011, in November of 2011, I went to go see David Icke in Cleveland, and I was doing the blog, I believe. Okay, so we'll just use 2011 as the starting point for the blog. So I've been doing it every day, daily, since 2011.
Wow.
Some people will say I'm completely insane. And then the radio show kicked off, I guess, around 6 years ago or so. And I don't know what made me want to go do podcasts. I just decided that, I'm going to do podcasts. And I reached out to two people that I didn't think I had a prayer of getting on the show early on. The first one was David Icke.
Wow.
Yeah, I interviewed David Icke back in
Wow.
2006. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
A person that I know had his email, and they said, well, here's his email. And I said, okay. So I sent him an email, and I explained in the email that I was just getting started.
Yeah.
And I thought, this guy's never going to answer me, And
Right.
he did. He got back to me like a week later, and he came on the show. So kudos to David for helping me out.
Super.
And Max Egan was the
Wow.
other one.
Yeah.
So I contacted Max. I was listening to Max for years,
Mhm.
And I used to love to listen to his podcasts. So I said, well, it'd be great if I can get Max on the show. But again, I didn't think Max would, I didn't think he'd get the email, because he gets just tons and tons of them, right? Just like David.
Absolutely.
But, so it played out right. And so Max came on. So they were two guys that really helped me to kickstart my podcast. And from there, it just kind of grew,
Yeah.
and I got networked in with other folks in the research community, and started putting shows together and so on. And that's how I wound up where, what I'm doing today. And then, I know we're not going to talk about this tonight, but then I got heavily into the Beatles and the Paul McCartney conspiracy, so that ate up 4 years of my life.
Yeah. That's funny. That's a funny way to describe it. And I think that was maybe the first time I heard of you was in connection with someone trying to explain to me what the Beatles conspiracy, Paul is dead's whole thing was.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, you got to go check out this guy. So it is probably one of your more well-known aspects of all the many things that you've done. And that's one of the things that was impressive when I was sort of, looking into like researching you and just kind of finding out more about what was going on with you, and seeing that blog is amazing. I mean, it's a trove of information that I don't know that anybody could get through it if they tried,
The blog, yeah. And the problem with the blog is there would be a lot more there, but I had to change the URL 3 times
Oh, wow.
because Facebook banned my URL twice. Actually, they banned it 3 times. I should 3 times. And so each time that they did it, I had to go into Blogger or Blogspot, and I had to just change the name of the blog just a little bit so that I can create a new URL.
Right.
And that would run for a while. And then what they would do is they would just ban the blog, not posts, the entire blog.
Mm-hmm.
So even today, every once in a while, I'll check to see if they've let me back in, and they have not. So yeah, I'm banned from Facebook. The blog is, I guess, for life. So they just didn't like, they don't like the truth.
Right. Yeah, I hate.
Right, we know how that works.
I hate them. There and now I think maybe it would be different, because I feel like now they just shadow ban, and they just like, yeah, sure, you can post that, just no one will see it. You're like, oh,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, right. Because when they were doing it outright, what happened was they were getting caught.
Yeah.
And so that put a lot of heat on them. And so they said, okay, fine, we'll just shadow ban. And you think your stuff is going out there, and it's really not. Nobody is seeing it.
Except maybe like the 4 people they chose who they already know are, off on those tangents anyway, and they're like safe to show. And so like those are the 4 people that like or comment on it, and no one else sees it.
Well, Google does the same thing, So what I'll do sometimes is I'll go in just on a lark, and I'll type in something, a very popular show that I did, and I'll take a look and see what comes back from the search results. And it's anemic,
Yeah.
They're just not, it's shadow banning is what it is. So it is hard for us, you, me, and others are doing this work to get our word out, because they make it very, very difficult.
Yes.
They really do. And people have to really hunt and peck to find us. And I've been doing shows for 6 years, and I've got people coming to me saying, hey man, I just discovered your channel. I've been here for 6 years.
Yeah. Right.
Or the blog. Hey, I just found your blog. I said, well, the blog's been there for like almost 10 years,
Yeah.
a decade, And that's because what they're doing is that they're just, keeping it out of view by doing the shadow banning.
Right. They just bury it. That's why it's really important for all of us in this community, I think, to keep links where we want them, and share those links specifically with people directly, so that we can sort of spread what we want to spread. And because people aren't going to organically stumble upon it. And even if they do, you've probably noticed this as well, that YouTube will unsub people for no reason. I've had multiple people tell me like, I was subscribed, I swear, and then I went and I wasn't. And I'm like, yeah, that's like the story that I hear all the time. So who knows what would be happening if none of us were controlled like that in those ways, and we could actually grow organically. It'd be amazing. But Google even controls, not just necessarily suppressing like the truth and the sort of alternative thinking like we're talking about, but also as simple as, I did a search so I could present 2 sides of an argument in my classroom. I wanted a pro-gun and an anti-gun, just very simple. We were just going to look at sort of rhetoric and logical fallacies, and I couldn't find any pro-gun anything on Google, no matter the search terms I used. And, I've got searching down, like I understand how to use various terms in various ways, and like pluses and minuses and all the Boolean stuff. And I could not find it for pages and pages. Yeah. You can't even be pro-gun.
It's scrubbed. Another example of that is, I've been telling people that, I guess we'll get into this, but the whole mask thing. And I said, you have to be very, very careful with masks, because from a medical perspective, you can wind up with hypercapnia.
Yeah.
Where you have your oxygen levels dip because you're breathing in too much CO2. You can get, tired. You have lethargy, shortness of breath, headaches. This is very common, by the way, by people who are wearing masks. And I've asked a bunch of people who have to wear them all day, and they said, yeah, and all that stuff is happening. So I went in the other day and I said, well, let's see what they're saying about masks and hypercapnia and whether masks are harmful. I'll tell you, Lindsay, the first page of the results that came back all consisted of various web pages saying there are no health concerns with wearing a mask,
God, it's just a
which is
blatant
evil.
lie. Yeah.
And it's evil. It's
Yeah.
evil because people can get sick, and and they could wind up going to the doctor,
Ugh.
and they're being told it's perfectly okay to do that. But that's another example of where they're just cleansing
Yeah.
everything. On my YouTube channel, I've caught them a number of times. Yes, unsubscribing people. I've had lots of people come to me and say, Mike, I did the bell thing, subscribed. I'm no longer subscribed. I have to resubscribe. And I've caught YouTube around 3 or 4 times now, just ripping out views by the thousands.
God.
And the way you catch them, just for anybody who wants to know, and you have a YouTube channel, is the analytics that the content provider sees is one set of numbers. That's the number of your actual views.
Yeah.
And then what they do is the public doesn't see that number. The public only sees the views that they see when they go to look at the video. That's the number they change first. And then there's a lag time. There's about a day or two before the analytics catches up and drops the number. But if you're able to catch it in between that 1 to 2 day window, you'll see where they took your views out.
Assholes.
And they've done that to me quite a number of times.
It's so.
Aside from banning videos or just taking them down, they've done that to me on a number of videos.
Yeah. Well, and I have people then ask me, like, why are you even bothering with YouTube and whatever? And I'm like, because this is still where people are going, and it's still working technically for me, and I'm not invested as, like, a career. If it all fell apart tomorrow, I'd be frustrated and sad and angry, but I wouldn't be destitute or, I don't rely on it necessarily. And so why not use it while it's here? I don't have to jump through any hoops. I don't have to wear a mask to do it. I don't have to compromise any of my beliefs or anything in order to be able to live stream here. And so I still do it. But I do, like you do, I think, have a backup BitChute and DTube and all these things. And so if people go and subscribe to both of our backups, I think that that's smart, because if we do get pushed off here, then that's where we'll, be.
Well, that's why we are on YouTube. I get asked the same question, why are you still on YouTube? Well, because it's the largest platform.
Yeah.
And we still have the largest potential audience.
Right.
Until one of these other platforms gets more traction. If they do, then I will be more than happy to move off of YouTube and go someplace else. But right now, we have to go where we can reach the largest audience. And right now, that's still YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not a greedy thing or anything. It's exactly that. Like, I want this content to get to as many people as possible, because
it's just common sense.
It's true. Right. Well, I do want to talk about the mask thing with you, but I also want to go back because you have so many fascinating things you brought up, like being a hypnotherapist. And I am fascinated by hypnotherapy because I don't think I can be hypnotized, and I don't know what you think about that. And then I also just think that it's impressive that people can be, but I want to hear basically, when people are hypnotized, is it like the movies show where they're just fully unaware and,
No.
Okay. So what's it like?
No. Yeah. Okay. So I get that question a lot. I don't think I could be hypnotized, Mike. Do you think you can hypnotize me? And the answer to that is we go in and out of hypnosis or trance all day long. Right. So there's 4 basic trance states. So we have beta, which is your waking state. Below that is alpha. Below that is theta. And below that is delta. So delta would be sleep. And those are the 4 basic ones. Right. You'll have people out there that will argue there's others, but those are the 4 basics. So all day long, we go in and out of trance. So as an example, if you're on the highway and you're driving and you're deep in thought about something and you're on autopilot and you don't remember driving the last mile or two.
Yeah.
You're in a trance state. You drop into alpha state. Okay. If you go to a movie theater, let's say it's a very popular movie, and when you first get there, it seats 500 people, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of people in this theater. And as soon as you sit down and the film starts to roll, you completely box out and forget about the other 499 people there, because it's just you and what's playing on the screen. That is a trance state. You've dropped into an alpha state and you're focused on the film. The same thing happens when you watch a movie on your television, when you're reading a book. A really good one is with kids, right? They're playing video games and the mother's calling them, come on downstairs for dinner, right? Yeah. And they get no response. And then parents got to march upstairs and say, haven't you heard me? I'm calling you. Dinner time is ready and so on. I didn't hear you. I'm playing this game. So what happened was they were so entrenched in playing that game and so focused on it that they pushed everything out, you know, everything. That's a trance state that you're in. In fact, we learn by being in trance. So when you go to school, as an example, um, if you remember back in elementary school or middle school or high school, and you had your teacher or your professor, writing on the blackboard back in my day or a whiteboard today, you are very focused on the teacher, and you're not focused on anybody else in the class. You have classmates, but you're not focused on them, and that's a trance state that you're in.
Hmm.
So the reason why I'm saying all this is because people don't understand that we go in and out of trance all day long, all day long. Deep trance states are when you first wake up in the morning, that groggy state,
Yeah.
coming out of delta, going through. What happens is you're in delta, coming up through theta, then up through alpha, up to beta, right? And then when you go to sleep at night, it's the reverse process. So you're dipping down, and you'll, right before you nod off, you're in that very, very deep theta state.
Yeah.
So what I tell folks is, yes, everybody is hypnotizable because everybody goes in and out of trance all day long, every day of their life. The thing is, when the person comes in for a session, they just have to go with the process, just go with the flow, relax the best they can, and try not to get in their way.
Yeah.
See, what I mean by that is some clients want something so bad as far as what the session's going to bring them. As an example, I do a lot of spiritual regression, past life regression.
Oh.
I do a lot of that. It's probably 50% of my practice. And when clients come in, obviously they want to have that experience, right?
Right.
But if they're pressing too much and they're trying too much on their end, because they don't realize there's really nothing they have to do but just relax and listen to me and follow my lead.
Yeah.
What'll happen is they will wind up blocking themselves, and they actually keep themselves from getting in. But when you have that situation, what I tell my clients is, don't sweat it, relax. If we have to come back another day and give it another shot, we will. And like 99% of the time, if they do block the first time and they come back the second time, they go right in. And the reason is because they're now familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Most people, when they come in for hypnosis, have never had it before.
Yeah.
So it's very foreign to them. But once they understand it's really not this very mysterious thing, that it's actually a normal flow of our consciousness,
Yeah.
right? Up and down, up and down. And all it is when you go into trance, it just means your brain waves slow down. That's all it means. There's nothing magical or mysterious about it. And so once they understand that, they relax and they go into trance, and we can do the work or have the past life.
Wow. So I think part of my thing where I feel like I'm unhypnotizable is that while I'm attempting to be hypnotized, I'm sitting there going, am I doing this right? Is this what's supposed to be happening? Is this is this normal? Yeah. So I think
well,
that
you're not knocked
me.
out. You're not knocked out. That's the thing. You're aware that you're having this session.
Right.
And you may hear things, like you might hear a dog bark outside, you might hear a car door slam, but it's just like when you're very, very sleepy. You'll hear those things, but it's a very fleeting moment. And then you go right back to sleep. And when it's hypnosis, you go right back into the trance, right back into that state of relaxation. You don't overthink it. You just go right back. So, I mean, it's nothing like the movies.
Yeah.
nothing like the movies at all.
So because they'll show things like where people have been, I just remember seeing some clip of some news, like 60 Minutes or who knows what it was. And they were like, look, you can actually hypnotize people to do these things, and they'll like shoot their friends. And this guy had a gun. He thought it was real and loaded. And then he shot somebody. And like, this is how you could create like a Manchurian candidate. And I'm like, how real or not real is this? Because, we hear about MK Ultra stuff, and I feel like trauma, and like breaking the psyche and doing those types of things probably is more effective. But I've always wondered whether hypnosis could accomplish something like that.
No, by itself, no. That's the thing. They put that stuff out there, and I'm convinced they put that stuff out there because they really don't want people to explore alternative ways of wellness and health and stuff like that, right?
That
So,
makes
as an
sense.
example, clients will come to me and they will quit smoking in 2 sessions.
That's awesome.
Yet, they're told by mainstream, by the mainstream media and the medical industry that smoking is an addiction and we have to prescribe medications for you,
Yeah.
patches and stuff like that, right?
Right.
I've helped people to stop drinking.
Wow.
Okay. So they will also tell you that once a drinker, always a drinker, and drinking is an addiction. Well, how can it be an addiction really if after 2 or 3 sessions, I can get you to stop drinking as if you've never drank before in your life?
Yeah.
You see? See, they don't want people to know stuff like this. They just simply don't want them to know that. Because if people start pursuing those types of avenues for wellness, well, then you're going to abandon their process, their Western medicine and their pharmaceuticals. And I can't tell
Right.
you how many people come to me and say, I don't want to do these drugs anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, and I need to do something else because I know inherently this is not good for me.
Yeah.
They
Right.
know. Now, going back to hypnosis and mind control, first of all, they use hypnosis all the time through the media. Your
Yeah.
television is a hypnosis box. So what they do is your mind loves imagery. And that's why what they do whenever they have these events, shootings, whatever it may be. 9/11 is a perfect example. We saw the same clips playing over and over again, buildings coming down, planes crashing into it, buildings coming down, plane crashing into it over and over again.
Yeah.
That's hypnosis.
Mm.
So what they're doing is they're playing the imagery over and over, and then they're also giving you suggestions. The person talking on the television is, while you're watching it and while you're focused on that imagery, they're giving you the suggestions. 19 people with box cutters, terrorism, be worried, alert, worry, alert, worry, alert, danger, danger, Will Robinson, right? They're
Right.
doing all that stuff. And then at the bottom of the screen, what they do is they use a ticker. We've all seen that, right?
Yeah.
Stock prices. Okay, that's really has nothing to do with taking a look at your stock prices, unless you are a really dull person and have nothing to do all day but to
Just
sit there and watch that.
read that thing. Yeah.
It's to induce eye fatigue. So as you're watching it at the bottom of the screen, your eyes start to fatigue, and that eye fatigue puts you into a trance state. You see?
Yeah.
That's why you see also those spinning logos of theirs, Fox News, like they'll spin.
Always moving.
Now, the reason why they're spinning it is the same thing. It creates eye fatigue, and that puts you into a trance state. So the television is nothing more than a hypnosis box, and a very effective one.
Yes.
And of course, they flash up colors, right? Reds. Red is the mind decodes red as caution, alert, danger, be careful, stop, right?
Right.
All of these things. And they love the color blue. Blue has to do with voice of reason, calmness, generosity. That's why you'll see these talking heads come on and you'll see two people debating with each other. One will be decked out like in a blue tie. The other guy's in a red tie. Or if it's a guy and a lady, you might see the lady in a blue dress and the guy is dressed with a red tie. So what they're doing is they're also playing with the mind as far as the colors,
Yeah.
aside from the fact that red and blue also has a lot to do with Freemasonry. But if you take a look at the sets that they have with cable news and the regular news channels, like CBS, NBC, and ABC, you're just going to see essentially red and blues,
Yeah.
right?
Almost
Red and
exclusively.
blues. Yeah. So, and the thing is with mind control takes in hypnosis as one of the tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
But mind control, there's sensory deprivation, there are drugs, there's physical, emotional, mental trauma, and this happens over long periods of time. Okay.
Right.
So what they do is they use all of those variables, those wicked tools in their toolbox, and they put them all together over long periods of time. And that's how somebody winds up being affected by a mind control program.
Yeah.
It's not by somebody going to a hypnotherapist
Right.
to go quit smoking
Right.
or to release weight or to gain self confidence or be a better public speaker. It's a completely different realm, you
Yeah.
know. But they play it up that hypnosis is mind control, but they leave out the drugs, they leave out the trauma, they leave out all of that stuff. Electric shock treatment,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't do electric shock treatment, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's true. And
anyway,
it's exactly like you say, anything that they sort of present as negative or dangerous or bad, we should probably look closer at, like,
yeah.
hypnosis, because it probably is some tool or key or piece of the puzzle that we need to see. And then all the stuff that is actually true, they're going to hide and keep us from kind of finding out as
Anything
much
they
as
tell you
possible.
not to do, you immediately should think the opposite, right?
Right.
It's
Like
like when
masks.
the church came out. The church came out. I think it was the Pope. I read something about a year ago, and he said, "Don't do yoga. Yoga's evil."
You're like, we need to do more yoga.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
first thing you should do is go buy a yoga mat, right?
Right.
And go get yourself a Rodney Yee DVD. That's what I have. And go start some basic yoga, because yoga is very good for your body. It's very good for opening up your chest. It's very good for your respiratory system, your stamina, and just the health of your mind. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Oh, I'm really honored because I just got a super chat from Megsy. Megsy, thank you. And Marty Leeds just popped up to say hi to both of us. So what's up, Marty Leeds? Nice to see you.
Well, hello, everybody.
And the hypnosis thing I also want to ask about is, oh man, I lost it.
That's okay. We can come back to it.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. Oh, but I did
Yeah.
want to mention, with the TV hypnotizing us, and I like that phrase, their TV is like a hypnosis box. It's really true, and we should all.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And we
There's
should
no
all be-
question about it. That's why it was given to us.
Right. And I have a couple things I want to point out that. But one, do you think that you can watch TV knowing that and knowing all the sort of tricks that you talked about and sort of be able to take it in without any of that damage that they're intending, because you're sort of aware and awake and looking
Oh
for it?
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm very aware of it. So as soon as they put it up there, I mean, I said, I've been doing this for a decade. So as soon as I see the news, I know exactly what they're doing. And a lot of these talking heads and these anchor people, they're trained in neuro linguistic programming, NLP,
Yes.
right? Right. So there's a great video I have of Sean Hannity, where somebody who is an NLP instructor, I think he was. This goes back a few years ago. Breaks down Sean Hannity's his movements, his hands, and what he's doing, and how he's expressing himself, and is explaining, each moment of the clip what Hannity is doing from an NLP perspective.
Wow.
Very, very interesting. Now, I have taken some NLP training, but I'm not an NLP expert, but I know enough about it
Yeah.
to be able to bring some of those techniques into my hypnosis practice. Because quite honestly, some of the NLP techniques are very helpful in helping to reshape thinking and reframing the mind, right?
Yeah.
So when I say reframing the mind, what I mean is, you're thinking one way, which is maybe negative, and you want to be able to reframe or shift the mind to be thinking in a more positive way. So there are NLP techniques that you can use in hypnosis while a client is in trance that are very beneficial to help make the shift.
Yeah.
So it's like anything else, Lindsay. People ask me, like as an example, is this good or is this bad? Right? We always hear that. Is this good or is this bad? And I say, well, it's like electricity. Is electricity good or bad? I mean, if it's going to light your house, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to the electric chair, not so good.
Right.
Right? It's intent. It really comes down to intent.
Yeah.
How is it being used? Right? And it could be used for good things, and it could be used for nefarious. And there are so many things in our life that fall into that dichotomy, into that duality.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, it's a tool like most things. It can be applied in negative and helpful ways, and healing ways,
Right.
and destructive ways. And One of the other things I wanted to bring up when we're talking about this mass hypnosis and, the hypnosis box is that I feel like to some degree we're all victims of this trauma-induced, MK Ultra mind control programming, and that's part of why things like this rollout of the mask mandates and all of these things are so effective. And I don't think many of us notice it, but 9/11 traumatized us, and the Las Vegas shooting traumatized us. And even if you're aware that it's a sort of false flag, it's less effective, right? So it's good to see through these things, but I still think at some level you're still getting this like, oh, here we go again, and there's some sort of trauma response, even as a person in this community. And so what do you think about us being, all of us, mind control victims of abuse?
Well, we've all been subjected to their trauma-based mind control, right? So before we were awake or awakened, and there's various degrees of being awake. A lot of times people like to talk about it as binary, switches on, switches off. I wasn't awake, now I'm awake. No. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Again, it's like a staircase, right?
Yeah.
Some people are far more awake than others.
Right.
So I just want to say that that's just the reality of the situation. But we all have been subjected to trauma-based mind control, and it does sit with us, and we have to do a lot of inner work to break through it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think in the alternative research community, what happens is when this stuff rolls out, some of that knee-jerk reaction that people have to basically get out there right away, put something out, actually many times before they actually have any facts. I've seen this so many times, right? That to me is an outcome of the trauma-based mind control that people have been subjected to, because you have a knee-jerk reaction to have to respond against it now, or to have to push back, or to say it's fake, and so here's what I think it is. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in the sense that we do want to be able to call these things out, but we need to do it in a way that it's fact-based, and it has logic.
Rational.
And we can draw it's rational, and we can draw rational, logical conclusions, or at least put a rational, logical theory to put that forth. Too many times what I see is too many people don't do that, and it just becomes a gigantic goat rodeo. It just does, right? It's like it's all over the map, and that does not do the alternative research community or the conspiracy research community any good. I was asked a question by I was on a show with Angelo, and Wrestling with the Future, and one of the guys, Dan, he's a great guy, he asked a very good question. He says, well, Mike, how do you address all of these conspiracies out there that are just these wild conspiracies? And I said, well, I don't have any responsibility to address other people's material or other people's theories. I don't.
Right.
The only responsibility I have is to express and put forth my ideas,
right, and
my findings and my research. But his question was very interesting, because Lindsay, what he was saying is, and he wasn't a conspiracy guy, right? He was kind of the skeptic that was on the show. But what was interesting about his question is that there's a belief out there, I guess if he believed it, that many others do, that you and I and everybody else out there somehow have an obligation or responsibility to address other people's material, or to debunk it, or to validate it. And it's a very weird dynamic, because I have no responsibility to anybody else but myself and my own work.
Yeah. It's almost codependent. You're like, you need to take care of other people because, I don't know, because I told you so.
and they want to paint us into, they want to paint us all as Alex Jones too, by the way, right? We know that, right? So they want to put us in that category. So anyway, I'm probably taking us way off track.
No, I mean, we have no track. We just have backup tracks, so we're good.
Okay.
It's awesome. And I just keep losing my thought, which is funny, because I feel like I've been hypnotized, but But yeah, I do think that we have the tendency to sort of react instead of respond, and that's been like a theme of the last few weeks in my mind, at least, that I've just sort of been cogitating about this. I think that maybe that is our responsibility, is to get to a place where we are responding instead of reacting, and especially with the whole, as soon as the TP shortage happened and, this phrase, coronavirus or whatever, was out on the newsreels, people in this community just sort of like lost it. They were like, this is the end game. And like, we're all gonna die. And I'm like, no, you guys are the ones who are supposed to like keep your cool so that all the people who have never looked at anything critically can have at least like someone in their life who's saying like, it's okay, the toilet paper's gone for a minute, we're probably gonna be fine, you can wipe with other things if you need to, like just calm down. I
told people they're just screwing with us is what they were doing with the toilet paper. They're just, what they're telling us is, hey, we even control
whether you can toilet or
whether
not.
you can wipe your butt.
Yeah. Totally. And it messed with people a lot. And it was kind of like a sad time, but I noticed that exact thing you're talking about, where it's easier to sort of jump in. And I honestly think there's like an ego boost in it, like I said it first and I like saw it first and I'm like, and I'm on top of things. I see things, look at me. And it's like, just like,
I'm not interested in being first.
Right.
I really want to make sense.
Yeah. And it's okay to say
people,
like, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. We'll see, like, who knows?
Exactly.
Let's take a breath.
Exactly. The other trap they fall into, and a couple of people have gotten themselves into trouble with this, is that, they go out there and they make these accusations, right?
Right.
And so it gets into a whole situation of defaming and stuff like that. Now, even if they're absolutely right about like one situation where two people that that I know of, I don't know them personally, but I know of them, got themselves into significant legal problems, was with Sandy Hook.
Yes.
And just being very, very definitive about what happened at Sandy Hook. Now, I'm not going to comment on it one way or another, because we will lose this show. Okay. Yeah. they'll just take it down. The point I'm trying to make is that even though we know, many of us know, that these events are orchestrated and engineered, right? If you go out and start making very definitive statements about this person, that person, and so on, here's the thing: you might be 100% correct, but the issue is the very people that you're attacking. Okay, the system also controls the courts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they have the power.
There's a fallacy by many people in the truth community that they believe that if we get our day in court, there's going to be remedy. And what I have been telling folks is, look, the same people that are turning this world upside down, they own and control the courts. Okay. There is no way you're going to walk into a courtroom and you're going to turn around some psychological operation that they have put in place
for who knows how many years.
Because before that whole court date started, you can bet your butt the judge got a call or a memo and said, okay, this is how it's going down. Okay. You got that? Yep. Got it. Okay, fine. And that's what they don't understand.
Yeah.
So many don't understand that.
It's not a fair system.
No, it's not a fair system. That's the thing. The system is completely unfair. The cards are stacked against us. And, it's the reality of the situation.
We know.
So that's why I'm just.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to let, for folks who are listening, who are in the truth community, just be very, very, very prudent with the way you go about this. There are ways to get your point across without getting yourself shot.
Yeah.
Or winding up in, losing a lawsuit and having millions of dollars,
Yeah.
Dumped on top of your head as far as, what it is that you have to pay out and what you owe because you lost the court case.
Yeah. Or being put in a cage or whatever.
Or being put in a cage.
I know that, a lot of us have this instinctive sort of understanding that the truth is all that matters and the truth will prevail and the truth is, but then that's not the system we live in. So I think we're like led by our heart or whatever to be like, but no, this is the truth and I have to say it. And I totally totally get that
Yeah.
feeling. That's I think within all of us who are sort of awake and aware and good, but that's not the reality that we have. So it
Well,
is
the
better to be
truth
careful.
the truth will set us free, but
Yeah,
you can't
individually.
individually. Yeah, but if you try to go head to head with the system, if
Yeah.
you play their game, you will lose. You will lose because you're playing their game.
Yeah.
So you have to go about it in a different way. You
Yes.
know, right? Exactly.
Yeah, and I get really frustrated with this too because I think it's another inclination that people have, especially when they're sort of whether they're like just starting to wake up or they're sort of like in a various step on the stairs of waking up, and they kind of come back to this thing where they want to like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? We have to go do this thing about it. And in their mind, the thing that should be done is, I mean, it's often honestly scripted by our society, right? Like go protest, go start a civil war and shoot people, or like go to your legislators
Right.
or judges or whoever and like make a petition or something and all these things. And it's like, well, those are all the games they set up for you. So you can go do that. And it might end up making like a small difference locally, somewhere hyper locally, or like it might open the awareness bubble of a few other people you encounter along the way. But in reality, like you said, they own all those games. They made all those games. And so you're not
Yeah.
going to win with those games. And in fact, you might be playing into exactly what they want you to do with those games. So there's got to be other ways. And I'm like you said, I'm with you that, like, it's really this personal sort of thing where you really need to look inward and sort of heal yourself and develop yourself as much as possible, because that is what actually ends up getting to more people along the way.
It's an individual journey.
Yeah.
They have convinced everybody it's a collective thing, right? And but the thing is, I did a video recently, and I said a community or a collective is only as strong as the individuals that comprise it.
Yeah.
So if the individuals are not awake, if they're not knowing, if they are profane, then you're going to have a very unknowing, profane collective or community. Well, I have a community, but so what, right?
Right.
They're not thinking. They're not critically thinking. So that's why it's very important that we do our inner work first and foremost,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
You have to be healthy first before you can do anything else. And so that's been my road for a number of years now. I started off on the whole collective community. We could get critical mass. We could turn this thing around and all this stuff. And then I realized that, you know what? No, this really is an individual journey, and it really is a spiritual journey.
Yes.
Because when we come into this realm, we come in with a lesson plan, a curriculum, and everything that we're going through is adding to the development and the knowledge base of our soul, right?
Right.
So the next go around, what happens is the soul is wiser. There's more wisdom. That's going to open more doors for the soul with the next crank,
Yes.
turn of the crank. Whereas maybe before, the soul had 2 or 3 doors to choose from as far as learning opportunities. And to the degree that you really do your work down here and you really understand what this realm and this reality is really all about, then what happens is the next time you go up there, there might be 8 doors available, right? So the 3 doors grew to 8 doors. And that's how I look at it. And I realize that there are people listening that don't believe in reincarnation, but that's fine. I mean, that's my spirituality, and that's how I approach it, and it's worked well for me.
Well, speaking of that, do you want to talk about your spiritual experience, or is that a private thing that you don't want to talk about?
No, I mean, I can talk about it. It was an amazing experience. What happened was back in 2009, and I was going to bed, and I was just lying in bed, and I wasn't sleeping. My eyes were closed. And for a few weeks before that, I should back up, I was closing my eyes at night, and I was seeing these swirls of light. White light, blue light, red light. It was just swirls. And then what happened was these swirls would then just lock in, and I would see a scene, and I would see people off in the distance, or I would see buildings or structures off in the distance. And it was, I mean, I couldn't make out faces and stuff like that, but it was very clear. It was like I was looking, they were out, way out there, but I could see like, wow, those are people out there, and those are buildings. That's, very, very strange, So I was getting that type of thing. And then, so that was going on for a number of weeks. And then that one evening, there was this swirl of light, and I was watching it, and I'm watching it and watching it. My eyes are closed, not asleep. And it's getting closer and closer. And as it got closer and closer, it started to form. And then it just stopped right in front of me. And it was a face. And it was, the face was a very wise looking face. It was a man. He had a beard, very bright white light radiating, just like almost like an aura that was just, it was very bright.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty bright. I mean, it's not something you'd be able to look at in the physical world without having like a welder's mask.
Yeah.
On. And so anyway, so it was right up, face to face with me. And the face was very stoic. And it communicated to me, the person communicated to me, or the being communicated to me telepathically, and said, it's time. So, I'm lying in bed, and, I'm looking at this. Oh, and as I'm going through this experience, my whole body was in a state of absolute bliss. It was unbelievable. I had never felt that level of bliss and love ever. And really what I thought I was seeing at the time, Lindsay, was I thought I was seeing God.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying back, and this is telepathic, and I said, time for what?
Yeah.
He didn't roll his eyes. He just said, it's time. And then he pulled back. And then I got up because I wasn't asleep. And I remember I was thinking to myself, what was that all about? That was the craziest thing. I said, what was that all about? Well, from that point forward is when my life changed drastically. Things that I was doing in the past, things I was interested in the past, they became just something I just did not care about anymore. And it was that moment that it set me on my path to doing the things I'm doing today, which includes, doing my hypnotherapy practice, past life regressions, helping people with clinical hypnosis, getting into alternative research, and, just really digging into a lot of areas that, if I went back 10 years ago, they weren't on my radar. It was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 months right after I had that experience, I went and took Reiki courses, and I became a Reiki master.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you had asked me before what Reiki was, I'd be like, I don't know. All of a sudden I have this wherewithal to like, you know what? I think I'm going to go study Reiki, and I went and did that. And it was really an unbelievable journey. And and I know it sounds really weird to a lot of people because they haven't had this experience before, but, I mean, growing up, I did have a lot of paranormal experiences. So I wasn't that like, taken back by it. Not that this was paranormal, but let's just put it this way. I was used to having, weird stuff.
Strange things happen. Yeah.
Strange things happen. Stranger things.
Yes. You don't immediately go like, well, I'm insane and I'm going to go check into a hospital, because you have had enough experiences to know, like, really weird things actually happen in life.
Actually, yeah. I did have a very, very different perspective on reality ever since I was a little kid, because like I would see apparitions and stuff like that. And, and I would mention it like to my parents and stuff like that. And they'd be like, well, you just have a good imagination, Michael,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, actually I saw that,
Yeah.
And so even though, I don't expect, you don't expect your parents and other people to really understand it. But the interesting thing was I didn't suppress it. I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to go with it. I mean, I know what happened. I experienced it, and I'll just move forward with that,
Do you think now that it was maybe like your spirit guide or your highest self, or what do you think that face or that force was now, that if you don't think it was God?
Oh, it was my guide.
Okay.
Because in subsequent to that, I've had other interaction, and he came forth again in a different way on a number of occasions, and and was explaining, helping me to understand my life path
Hmm.
and purpose. Now, what your guide's not going to do is he's not going to draw you a map.
Yeah.
He's not going to say, okay, Tuesday you do this,
Right.
and then a month, so they're not going to do that. But what they will do is they will nudge you a little bit and say, why don't you take a look or try this?
Hmm.
Or, hey, it's not going to hurt you to go walk in that direction over there and just poke around a little bit, right?
Right.
So they'll do that little nudging to help you to kind of lead you in a direction, but they won't hold you by the hand or by the scruff of the neck and take you there.
Yes.
You've got to do this on your own. And that's why it's important you do your inner work, because that inner work allows you to have that connectivity back to spirit. Because this reality looks to shut it down.
Yes.
And they do a really good job of it.
Really good.
Really good. So that's why the inner work's very important, because you have to have that communication, that line of communication with the divine, with spirit.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that's a fantastic experience to have and to share. And I have that sense that part of why you sort of fell into all of the right things and the right, directions after that was because you were more open and able to understand the communications, however they come, whether it's like synchronicity or different sort of ways of nudging you, because it sounds like your life before that was incredibly different than your life after that.
It was very different. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in the matrix,
Yeah.
I mean, even though I had these other experiences, I was in the matrix, corporate job, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, chasing money. And then it all changed. It all changed, and it changed for the better. I had to make decisions, and I did things that I'm like, boy, I hope this works,
Yeah.
you know? And you know what? It did. It
Yeah.
did work. That's the strange thing. We have to push through fear.
Yes.
That's our biggest obstacle. We are
Agree.
fearful. Oh my God. What if I fail? What if that doesn't happen? Well, sometimes we will fail. But you have to learn from your failures. You have to learn from your mistakes, pick yourself up and keep going. What you should not do is retract and just cower and say, oh, I'm just going to stay here because this is what I'm comfortable with. To progress, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. You
Absolutely.
have to get out of your comfort zone. If you don't get out of your comfort zone, then you're not going to make a lot of progress. That's been my own personal experience.
I am in absolute agreement with you. And not to say that I don't know. I think it gets interesting when we're talking about, and this is part of why personal development and inner work and really healing all of your traumas, all of your emotional issues, as much as you can is really important, because I think these types of things can get sort of dicey if you're like, I don't even know how to really explain it, but if you're like trying to convince yourself almost to like do this thing that's actually more like retreat, or actually more like I don't know, self-indulgence or something, or actually more
Yeah.
like a negative pattern you had, and you're like, no, really, there was like a synchronicity over there, and so I'm just gonna like go over there and like shoot up a little bit more heroin or whatever, like the negative thing is, like I think, and usually it's not that extreme, but I think if you're not kind of in the right place where you can be really honest with yourself and be really clear about what you're feeling and thinking, that it can be difficult to, and maybe that's exactly why there is sort of like a time, like your guide said, like it's time, is because
It's
you
time.
had gotten to that point where you can actually decipher correctly or discern correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a calling. That's how I look at it. And see, the thing is too, that we actually have to spend time in the matrix to experience it. Otherwise, we really don't have a baseline. We don't have a reference point, right? So, the time that I spent in the corporate world was actually extremely beneficial. It really was.
Yeah.
For one, from a very, very simple perspective, when I became a hypnotherapist, and I would have clients that would come in that were very stressed out because of their corporate jobs. And because I had come from that world, I understood completely
Yeah.
what it is they were going through, how it was stealing from their family life, how it was keeping them from enjoying their vacations, how they were working 60 hours a week, how they weren't spending the proper time with their children. I understood all of this stuff. And this is all stuff that is to take away from what we really are.
Yeah. Right.
That's what we're supposed to be. They try to take away our creativity, they try to take away our imagination. They don't want any of that stuff. They want left brain mechanized robots to do their work for them. That's what they want.
Literally, yeah.
That's what they want. And so like I said, spending time in that world helps you to be, I think, more understanding of helping people.
Yeah.
Because you were there. You were there.
It kind of fuels it doesn't even kind of, it fully fuels your compassion and your desire to sort of be available however you can and help however you can, like get people out of that sinking ship and onto the lifeboat,
Yeah.
Because you were there and you know how horrible it is, and yeah, I think it's really cool because I think people can look at a past like that and kind of be like, well, who is this guy? I mean, if he was, doing all that stuff before, like, why is he here now or whatever? But it's like, this is part of why, like you said, is so you can understand the whole circle, the whole picture fully.
Exactly. I mean, some people could say, oh, you worked in the corporate world for 30 years, how does he really know? I mean, maybe he's a shill,
Yeah.
You get that nonsense. And no, it's the life experience.
Right.
That was my life path, and there are many of us that have very similar paths. I've spoken to many people who were doing alternative research, and yes, they worked in the corporate world. They had 9-to-5 jobs. They were doing, they were on the merry-go-round, just like I was and many of us were. And then we got off.
Yeah.
Right? It's as simple as that. There's nothing more complicated.
No. Yeah, and I think it's perfect. It's perfect in that way, You really need those experiences in order to understand it. I think it's good. And I lost another thought, but it'll come back if it's important. So I guess I also want to talk to you about your views on the history of Christianity and sort of how that played into everything, because you had mentioned that as well. And it's a slightly divisive topic, I guess, but I think most people in this community kind of understand most of it. But what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, I'll just give you a real quick, without getting into great detail, but Christianity was created by the Holy Roman Church.
Right.
Okay. And so when we look at the Bible, and I was really doing a lot of research into the Bible, there's no authorship of any of the 66 books, right? And there were many gospels. There were dozens of gospels that were out, and the church decided on 4 gospels that they were going to bring together and harmonize them. That's the term that they use, harmonize them, right?
Yeah. Cleanse them.
And there's not one original text. Everything that they have, or at least everything that they have shown, biblical researchers and other researchers who are looking into the origins of the Bible are not originals. Okay, so they're all copies of a copy of a copy.
Right. And
so they over time, scribes were changing things here and changing things there and so on, and wordsmithing and so on. I mean, that's just what happened. And I mean, they didn't decide that Jesus was the Son of God until 300 years at the Council of Nicaea. Right. And so I mean, I would ask people, I would say, well, if something, what would somebody say about me or know about me 300 years from the time that I didn't exist anymore? Right. So obviously, it was something that was put together by the church. Now that being said, the Bible has a lot of very important messages in it. So I don't want people to think that, I don't go around bashing Christianity. I don't go about bashing the Bible. I don't do that. Like I said, I was born and raised a Roman Catholic. My mother is still Roman Catholic. I spent time in an evangelical, non-denominational church. There are a lot of great people. The fellowship in the churches is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, there's a lot of great support groups.
Absolutely.
But where I landed with it was that, like everything else, it's a man-made construct.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is what they did was they took really a mystery religion and they put it into profane language, and they made it into something that it's not. And so what they were doing was they were hiding the mysteries. They were hiding the astrotheology that is embedded in the Bible. That's what they were doing. And because they didn't want the average person to understand that stuff, so they kept him in a box. I point to Romans, and I think it's Romans 13. I think it's Romans 13:2. I hope, God, it's been a long time. But there in Romans it says that that Christians are to obey their government. Right?
Yeah.
that your government officials were, again, I'm paraphrasing here,
Right.
but basically were put in place and ordained by God, right? So the Creator. And now clearly, that was something that was inserted into the Bible by the Romans, right? The Roman Church. That's not something that I don't think Jesus would want in the New Testament. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So clearly, I mean, you see things like that and you come across them and you have to conclude that, it's not pure. It's not pure. And I know there's a lot of people listening to this right now. They're going to go out of their minds that I'm saying this, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You could be out of your mind if you want. I'm just telling you, I came from that religion, and I decided I was going to step out and understand it some more. And as I dug in, I realized that, it is a man-made construct, and it is used as a control mechanism. So that's where I landed with it. And but like I said, there are a lot of great messages, learnings from the Bible, especially from my view of the New Testament. I'm not a big fan of the Old Testament with the wrathful, vengeful God.
Yeah.
I love you, but if you don't listen to what I say,
Gonna kill you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's where I landed with it, and but people can believe whatever it is they want to believe.
Right.
It's as simple as that. I'm not in the business of trying to convert people to anything. I always say that on all my shows too. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything.
Right.
I'm just
Sharing.
discussing or presenting my findings and my research. That's it. If you believe me or you find it interesting or you're on board, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you don't and you think it's a big pile of junk, then okay, that's okay too.
Right. Yeah.
There's no skin off my back. I don't care one way or another.
No. And I hate when people want to ask you to defend it in a debate, and you're like, I'm not really here to convince you though, so I don't care. And they're like, but you made the claim. I'm like, that's cool. I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to, I think it's best to have evidence and reason and rational and all this stuff, but
Yeah.
it's just like we were talking about earlier, I don't have a responsibility to necessarily engage with any random person who wants me to defend something I've said.
No. People come to me and say, you didn't talk about this. You didn't say that. You this, you that. And my response back is, hey, you obviously have a YouTube channel. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to comment, right?
Right.
Go put some content up.
Right. I say the same thing. I'm
Right.
like, you can go do that. You go have a show and do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you have a different viewpoint than I do, and you think I am as wrong as rain, then what you should do is you should go on your YouTube channel. And by the way, don't use me as your reference point or your baseline.
Yeah.
Present your own material.
Actual information.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But what a lot of them like to do is they like to attack somebody else in order to try to make their point. No, why don't you do it this way? why don't you just stand on your own 2 feet
Yeah.
and make your own point based upon your own research
Yeah.
without bringing anybody else into it?
But I think they actually want to attack certain people because they think it'll get them attention, and it usually probably does. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
It's an
well,
unfortunate
yeah.
little ride that they're having.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think there's a lot of misdirection, intentionally so, in the church, and it's obviously been used
Yeah.
to control for thousands of years. But I'm also with you on that. There's a lot of gold in there as well, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that you can get out of it, and especially like you said, there's community that you can find in churches, and not. I think people have this idea that all churches are these like fundamentalist, crazy assholes, and it's like no, there's just normal people, and even if you're not 100% with them on every single issue, like that's usually a very, very good, strong, loving community.
Yeah.
It's definitely not always true, but
No.
if you
there were many churches that have great fellowship.
yeah. And I think
Plain
that's
and
something
simple.
that we're missing in a lot of our lives, and so there's a lot of good reasons to go be a part of that if that's what you would like in your life,
Yeah.
and not
I
feel
agree.
guilty about that you're like upholding thousands of years of oppression or whatever. It's like, no, you're just hanging out with cool people that you want to make a community with. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Because I think there is that sort of, people detest the church and the religion of Christianity so much that I think they kind of forget that
Yeah.
this is one of our
this
main...
it's that binary approach,
Yeah.
switches on, switches off type of thing. And I tell
Yeah.
people, like, you have to, sometimes people will say to me, I'll put something up on, on the blog, and it winds up on, on Facebook and on my Sage Quay Facebook page, and they'll say, well, I don't agree with everything that guy said. And I said, well, you don't have to agree with everything that they said, but even somebody who puts something up where you don't agree with everything, if there's a nugget or two that you can pick from that actually, right, sparks some thought or does make sense, or God forbid they're actually correct about, right? Take it.
Yeah.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, I don't agree with that, so I'm just going to just take the entire show or the entire video and just toss it out. I don't understand that type of thinking. I really don't understand it. And I see it a lot.
It's
where
irrational.
people just throw it out. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. I love when people comment on stuff and they don't even watch the material.
Or
right?
they'll be like, I got to 4 minutes and you said this and I stopped listening. I'm like, okay, well, you're clearly irrational, so goodbye.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense at all. Like somebody...
Goodbye. Right.
Yeah. There's like something, I don't remember exactly what it was, but let's say it was maybe even like from Hitler or something. And it's like, well, Hitler made good points too. Like I get that he's done horrible things if history is correct and not lying to us, and that, we can hate that and whatever. That doesn't mean it's actually a logical fallacy called genetic fallacy to say that, because it came from here, it's corrupted no matter what. But it's like, no, you actually have to evaluate each thing on the merit of its reason. And
you made an important point. If history is true,
right? Yeah,
we are finding out. We are finding out more and more now. There's a lot of great work being done about history has been completely turned upside down, and how we have been massively lied to. And there's a lot of good work. John Levy.
Yeah,
John, if I mispronounce, I love his show.
He's awesome.
And UAP.
I wish that he would come on Rogueways. If you're listening.
Yeah, those guys do great work, going back and taking a look at these structures back in the 1800s and so on, and the whole mud flood thing, right?
Right.
And so when you start to take all of this stuff in and think about it, I don't know. I don't know, Lindsay. I think they've lied. They lie about everything. And
isn't that the craziest thing to me about this is that, because, the first step for me was way back whenever I realized that like possibly the pyramids and these things are way, way, way older than they're saying. And that blew my mind. But now I'm to this point where like this, if this is the mud flood Tartaria thing, if this is all true, that means within the past couple hundred years, they transformed everything, and erased a whole entire, that's quick. That's really fast. And that's scary, that they could possibly do that.
I have a theory on that. I think the Carrington event, which was that huge
the
EMP.
Sun. Yeah. Ooh.
Right? Right. That's what we're told. It was a huge EMP, and it was a monster. And because I know a lot of these guys that are looking into the mud flood and everything else, it's like, well, what actually caused the flood, you know, and all that stuff. And so my lady and I were somehow we got to talking about the Carrington event, and so she so Barry looked it up, and she got a date on the Carrington event. I won't look at it now, but it
Yeah.
was right about that time frame,
Wow.
right in the mid
Yeah.
1800s. And I thought to myself, gee, I wonder if the Carrington event is what set the wheels in motion to completely alter the reality.
Wow.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. Well, and then I wonder, now that we're like speculating about that, I wonder if that's something that, they, like the forces, the powers that be, that seem to control everything throughout history, if they could engineer that to happen. At the very least, they capitalized on it, right? But is there a way that they could possibly, esoterically, spiritually, however, magically, influence that to happen so that they could pull something like that off?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with alignment of the celestial bodies.
Yeah.
I really do. I think now Martin Kenny and I did a show going back about a year, 2 years ago, whatever. And Martin talked really, I mean, he was almost a prophet. He had said that 2020 was going to be completely upside down and just filled with turmoil.
Wow.
And Martin had said that he had predicted that December 21st of this year, that there might be an event that would appear to be, or maybe it might be, catastrophic.
That aligns with a lot of my own weirdness.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe something like another Carrington event, or something where there's enormous amounts of electromagnetic pulses, frequencies, whatever, that will alter the reality as we know it again. I don't know. So, and I've talked about this with some folks, and they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "What can I do?"
Yeah. The same thing
I mean,
that you've been doing.
there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's just, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I personally don't think that they can bring an event on like that
Yeah.
naturally.
Okay.
Can they
that-
cause an EMP? Yeah, I mean, they can cause an EMP. They have technology to do that. But something massive where it affects the entire world,
Yeah.
maybe they do. But I would think it lends itself more to the cycles that that we go through, that the Earth goes through,
Yeah.
celestially, that we go through, the ages and so on. And I know you know about all that stuff. So I think that that's probably more of the
More.
underlying variable
Yeah.
than them actually futzing around. Not to say that they don't do that, but
But
I
they
really
can't
do think that
foresee it, and that they can't, at the very least, they can foresee it and capitalize on that.
they know. I mean,
Yeah.
they know the cycles. That's the thing. We're kept in the dark about that. So when we get some very intrepid people, they will dig into these things and they'll say, "Hey, we're going to have." I mean, I'm not an expert in this, folks. So I mean, we're talking about astrology and stuff like that. A lot of
Yeah.
what I know and stuff, I've learned from Martin, and I've looked at some stuff myself. But something happens when there's certain alignments energetically with these bodies, right?
Yeah.
Some people call them the planets, and if you're looking at the cosmic egg theory, the actual the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they're all part of actually suns and moons within the concentric circles on the flat plane in the cosmic egg theory, right? So if those suns and moons, if the cosmic egg theory is correct, and I do subscribe to it, I think it's a brilliant theory that Martin has put forth. If those suns and moons are in perfect alignment, then I think that I don't see why there wouldn't be the possibility of some kind of force, some kind of energy, something that could happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I know that the controllers, they're into the occult, they're into magic, they're into mysticism, they're into the mysteries. Astrology plays a huge part in this,
Right.
huge. And so I think that they roll all of this in, and they do know when certain things are going to happen. They do know.
Yikes. And that does that because when you're talking about like the alignment and some sort of energy coming through, it made me think of the electric universe theory. And I'm not an expert on understanding all of that, but I wondered if that plays into the cosmic egg theory or not, or if they're compatible or mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think there are correlations. They're obviously not an exact match because the electric universe deals with the heliocentric model. That's what I've seen, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the cosmic egg is really a geocentric model.
Huh.
But the concept of an electric universe would apply to both, in my view.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know?
There's no reason it couldn't.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's how I would look at it. People should watch, instead of listening to me on this, listen to Martin on this stuff. I did a show with him going back about a year and a half ago. It was a 3.5 hour show. He covers the whole thing, cosmic egg, soup to nuts. That's the best show to listen to.
And what's his name again? Just one more time for everybody.
Martin Kenny.
Kenny. Is it
Yeah,
Kenn?
Kenny.
Okay.
Like he has two first names,
Yeah.
Martin and Kenny.
That's awesome. I wonder too, because this whole time period for me feels like the 2020 so far feels to me like a lot of really heavy duty conditioning, mind control, and especially with the naming of things right now, it seems like it's like pretty almost obvious and in our faces that we've got novel corona, which is new crown or new mind, right? And now we have the comet Neowise, which is new wisdom, new mind. Mm-hmm. So they have the two same exact names almost. And then who knows what else they're going to bring about. So they're clearly, I think, trying to really get as many people as they can locked into wherever they want our minds. And so I wonder if that's almost in like preparation for whatever might come this winter.
I think it is. There's an initiation taking place right now. That's why people are wearing masks.
Right.
Okay.
It's like it's
an occult ritual. They are initiating the masses into something. And I did the numerology on coronavirus and COVID-19, and it's 9/11. Pythagorean numerology, coronavirus is 11, COVID-19 is 9.
And then
9/11. It's a 9/11 event. And so what I've explained to my audience is that 9/11 events are used to bring forth very significant transformation and change, a very significant altering of the reality. And so that's why they are pushing this coronavirus COVID-19 thing so hard. I think initially, that they thought that they would be able to get through the ritual faster than they had anticipated. So I think what's happened is that they're not quite there. And my assumption has been that they need a certain number of people to participate in the ritual. Mask wearers. They need a certain critical mass in order to get the ball over the goal line where the ritual is considered successful and complete. And I don't think they are there yet.
Ha.
Okay. and even though people will say, well, Mike, there's a lot of people wearing masks. I agree. There are a lot of people wearing masks, but in my view, not the number they need.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though there's a lot, they expected more. And so that's why I think I did a video called the failing mask ritual.
Good.
And that's why they're going at it the way they are, Lindsay, because if it were successful, they would have moved on to the next psyop, the next ritual, whatever, you know, and they're stuck on this thing.
Yeah.
Right. So who knows? Maybe we have enough people who are not consenting and not complying. We'll have to send them back to the blackboard. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to try again. They obviously will.
Yeah.
But any setbacks we can give them, I'm all for it.
Yes. I love messing up their plans. And I often think about that. Like if there's enough of us talking about it, being aware of it, not complying with it, even if it's just mentally and spiritually that we're not complying, then, do we have a chance of stopping or slowing them? And I think more and more, I feel like that's true. And so, and
the other thing is for those of us who don't wear masks, even sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
because there's all these people walking around with masks. Don't wear the mask, because what happens is there is a reverse psychological effect. The person who's wearing the mask, even though they think that I'm supposed to be wearing a mask, is also thinking, why isn't he wearing a mask?
Yeah.
Isn't he afraid of dying?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, obviously he's not.
Yeah.
And then they're going to see somebody else without a mask. And so that's how you erode the effect of the mask wearing. I've had people say to me, well, I'll put a mask on because I really don't want to hurt their feelings. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Because
you're hurting
all
their
you're
soul.
you're right. And you're enabling.
Yeah.
You're enabling
True.
people who are unknowing. Why would you enable unknowing people or profane people? You want to get them out of the profane, out of the state of unknowing, and you want to move them forward to a place where they are more aware
Yeah.
of what's going on. Even if it's a small incremental step, that's what you want to do. So I won't wear a mask. I mean, I just won't wear it,
Me too.
And to be honest with you, I haven't caught any flag for it.
No, I haven't either. It's been very strange. I've expected people to sort of get in my face. No one has. I've had like it prepared in my head, like how will I respond
me
if they
too.
do? They haven't. Stores have
Yeah.
said you have to wear a mask, and I'll say no. I have a medical exemption or whatever. I'm not going to wear a mask, and they're like okay, and I'm like okay. And then
Yeah.
even my doctor was like, you need to have these procedures done. You need to come in, and I was like, well, I'm not wearing a mask, and she's like, why? And I'm like, I have a medical condition. She's like, I don't understand. Can't you just wear it for a minute? I'm like, no, I can never wear a mask. I can't. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I mean, we have to do these. I'm like, I guess we're not going to because I'm not wearing a mask. And finally, she called me back like 2 days later and she's like, okay, we set it up so that you can come in without a mask. I'm like, I guess I'll do it then. Like,
I canceled the doctor appointment.
yeah.
And it was, and it was, well, here's the story, okay?
Okay.
It was a pulmonologist.
Oh, wow.
He's a respiratory doctor, okay?
And they want you to wear a mask. What the hell? Oh, my
Right?
God. Yeah.
And I had a checkup, and I called up in advance and I said, hey, I don't do masks. And he says, well, all the patients have to wear a mask in the waiting room and then we can take them off. I said, he's a pulmonologist.
Yeah.
Why is a pulmonologist asking people who are coming to a doctor who does lungs
Right.
and respiratory, why is he insisting on them wearing a mask? Where is the critical thinking?
Yeah. This is your
You know?
job.
Yeah, and so this is the thing, right? I did another video. I do a lot of videos, folks, where I had said that it's like giving these doctors an IQ test and they fail it.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that the medical community, we put doctors on pedestals, but they, Lindsay, are some of the most indoctrinated people walking around because they work in an enclosed system. The whole medical business, the health care industry is closed. And if you walk off the reservation even this much, you could be in big trouble. You'll lose your career, you'll lose your license, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that's how they keep them contained and they stay there. And they're not questioning anything. Like how a doctor who is a pulmonologist even think to begin to ask patients who are coming in with pulmonary conditions to wear a mask is mind-blowing.
It's crazy.
So I told the lady at the desk, I'm not coming in. You just take me off the schedule.
Yeah.
That's that. We're done with that.
Well, and
when you come to your senses, give me a ring.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And it is, like you said, I think this is another example of how if you are, healed and whole as much as you can be and have done your kind of self-work, then you can be this person who doesn't wear a mask in public because you're at that point where, that's something that you have the sort of strength and willpower or patience or whatever it is that it takes to sort of do that. And then that is one of those things that then does affect the whole world. It ripples out and affects the whole world because one person, like you said, is going to see you, ask themselves like, wait, do I really have to wear a mask or what's going on here? And that's going to then go to someone else. And it's like these things that I think people don't realize actually do change the world. It always starts within you, and that you have gotten to this point where you are that aware, awake, strong, whatever it is, whatever the list of characteristics is.
You've got to be strong. You've got to be strong. Don't buckle. Critically think. Stand your ground. It's going to get uncomfortable at times.
Right.
Fine. There's going to be times somebody is going to say something to you. Just like like you, I have a little script in my head,
Yeah.
right? And it's going to be nice,
Right.
but they'll get the point. And so that's what you have to do. But you can't, if you fold your cards and you just go along to get along, that's not going to work. That's not
No.
helping anything.
Yeah, they're going to come for you eventually. you know, you're going to help
Yeah,
create the system that you hate by going along with it.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, we also wanted to talk about Q, the phenomenon known as Q, in our talk here, and I think we're pretty much on the same page as each other on this. But where do you want to go with Q?
Well, yeah, I don't talk about Q a lot. It's one of those things where I just ignored it.
Yeah,
And I was hoping that a lot of people in the truth community would see it for what it is. And it's a psychological operation, it's a psyop.
yeah,
And I have told folks in the truth community that what Q is doing is no different than what David Wilcock and Ben Fulford were doing back in 2012, which was, the mass arrests. It was the fall of the cabal. The militia was ready, right? They had this guy, I think his name was Drake, who was supposedly a spokesperson for the militias, and the militias were ready to, take the republic back, and all this stuff was just, swirling around in the alternative research community. And 2012 was going to be the year that the cabal was going to fall, and everything was going to be good. Everything was going to be better. Of course, nothing happened, right? And so when Q came out, Q is basically it's actually talking the same script. It's the same talking points. It's a little more elaborate in the sense that there's Q drops and you have to decode it and everything else. And so that what that does is that makes the person who's following Q, it gives them a sense of importance. It gives them a sense of I'm really sharp because I could figure this thing out, and this is what I think Q is saying.
and you're part of a community.
Part of a
Right.
community, exactly, right? But the biggest problem with Q is the fact that it is more savior mentality. That's the biggest problem with it. And it ties back to what we said earlier, Lindsay, that it's an individual journey. You are going to save you.
Yeah.
And what people have to understand, I'm just going to go through this really quick here. People believe that Donald Trump is where the buck stops. Okay? He's nowhere even near the top of the pyramid. Okay? So what I would like people to do, if they're really interested in learning the structure, is to read this book. Okay? It's from Dr. John Coleman. It's The Conspirators' Hierarchy, The Committee of 300. This is the third edition. I think Mr. Coleman had, it was up to his fifth edition. He's old now. He's 84. I tried to get him on my show, but I think because of his age, he's not really doing email and
Techie.
Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not really just doing that stuff anymore. But this book, this is 1993. So we'll call it around 35 years ago or so. When you read this book and you see what was going on and you see the structure and the apparatus that was in place back in the 1990s and how pervasive the control is, full spectrum in 93, and then project out to 2020, and you could bet it is a lot more control. It's a lot worse. It's a lot worse.
Yeah.
But so the thing is, this world rolls up to the Committee of 300, right? There's 300 people that comprise the Committee of 300. And these people are bloodlined and oligarchs. And everything is tops down from there. So from there, you have the Royal Institute of International Affairs, you have the Tavistock Institute, you have the Club of Rome. It's unbelievable. The network is unbelievable. We don't have enough time here to go through it all.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is this: presidents and prime ministers have job descriptions. Okay, they are there to to um, to implement what comes out of the Committee of 300, what comes out of Tavistock. All U.S. policy comes out of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, or Chatham House. All of it. Okay? So what happens is you have people like Henry Kissinger, and I'll pick on these two people, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who were secretaries of state. They were perpetually in the background through multiple administrations, and they were shaping policy, they were implementing policy, and they were handling presidents. That's what their job was to do. Okay. And so to think that Trump is going to overturn the Committee of 300, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Tavistock, the Club of Rome, and everything else that's connected into it.
Right. And there are thousands of years that they've been at it.
It's not going to happen. Okay, folks, it's not going to happen. So what Q is a psyop to take those who have awakened to a certain degree, and they always have to cut it off at the pass.
Yeah.
So they have this emergence of people who are starting to critically think, and they know something is broken, something is wrong, and we need to get things back on track. So what do? They create Q. And so they send people off to go focus on, Trump's going to save us. JFK Jr. is going to come back from the dead, and he's going to give a speech at Mount Rushmore on July 4th, 2020. I actually got people sent me links on that stuff. Okay. But the best of my knowledge, JFK Jr. did not come back, and there was no speech by him at Mount Rushmore on July 4th. So what's happening is they're keeping these people distracted, and they are playing a psychological game with them.
Yes.
That's what's happening. And too many people I've seen in the truth community have fallen prey to this.
A lot.
I've had people that I know say that they're connected into an insider. They have insider information. Hey, guess what? This was the same thing that David Wilcock and Ben Fulford were saying back in 2012. The same exact narrative. It's the same script. They had insiders too. Everybody has insiders.
Everybody.
There was a website going
source.
back to sources, inside source, somebody, back in 2012, there was a website. I think it's still up today. It's called the White Hats Report. Yeah, the White Hats Report. Yeah. And that website was supposedly the White Hats who were dropping information about what was going on behind the scenes, how the fall of the cabal was imminent, and this person was doing that, and that person was doing this. And Ben Fulford was talking about the dragon families, how they were involved in this, and they were all, and people who were in the Illuminati and stuff like this, who wanted to change the world for a better place. This was all 2012. It's 8 years later, and nothing happened, and we have the same script being run, but instead of Wilcock and Fulford, we've got Q.
Yeah.
Right. That's how this is how I'm seeing it, and but once you understand, really understand the structure, you will completely get how implausible the whole Q narrative is. Other things, stuff people should read is the Protocols of Zion.
Yeah.
Okay, read the Protocols of Zion. Early 1900s, over 100 years, the entire blueprint of what's going on is in the Protocols of Zion.
And it all comes
You
true.
want to see what's going on? The Changing Images of Man by Willis Harman out of Tavistock. I don't know how many pages this is. It's a behemoth. 250 pages.
Wow.
Okay? The Changing Images of Man. If you want to understand the human potential movement, the Aquarian conspiracy, the New Age movement, it's in there. You want to understand about the technocracy? You want to read Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, Between Two Ages, in the 1970s. 50 years ago, he was talking about how the world was going to be taken over by a technocracy.
And it is.
Okay, so Brzezinski, heavily a deep state operative, right? Willis Harman out of Tavistock and the Stanford Research Institute, SRI. Okay, these are heavy hitters.
Yeah.
These are people, they're telling you what the game plan is, Protocols of Zion, and then again, Dr. John Coleman's book, The Committee of 300. These are just four books
yeah.
that you can read, and you'll get an understanding. The problem we have in the truth community is people they're not doing the right research. They're not reading the right stuff. A lot of times it's like, oh, I really like this person's YouTube channel, and so what they're saying really resonates with me. But that's okay. It's good that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you have to go to the source of the problem. Okay, and the source of the problem are the people like Brzezinski, Kissinger, Willis Harman. These are the people that are the brains behind what's going on. These are people that are leading, they're not alive anymore, but these are the people that were leading the initiatives back in the 1960s and the 1970s, which has led to where we are today. And if you don't want to dig that hard, and then what's going to happen is you're going to be easily misled down the wrong path.
Yes. And everything you said is perfect. And it happens a lot that people will tap into a certain podcast or show or community around those shows or whatever, and they'll just blindly follow anything that those people say. And it's like, me, you, anyone, we're all fallible, right? So no matter what, it's a good idea to do your own digging. But also, like you said, they tell you flat out what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. And it always happens that way. So they're never wrong, right? And maybe we slow it down, or maybe we have little zigs and zags, but they're basically based on how well they control the entire planet. They basically pull it off every time, and it's pretty sad, but you're right. And I think part of what the Q thing, has done is that, because even like you said, there's always a trap to catch anybody at any level of awakeness. And that always goes back to that same thing we've been saying the whole show, which is that you really have to work on yourself, your own emotional failings and all these things, because those are the traps. That's what the traps prey on, is your weaknesses in those ways. And so you have to really shore up yourself and your mind and your defenses in order to see through that. But the Q thing preys on this idea that like you said, those people are awake, they're going to fall into it. Even if you start questioning Q and well, wait a second, all the things you just said, how would Trump challenge this entire ancient cabal, or whatever, it doesn't make sense. But then they have a backup, and they're well, there's time travel, Nikola Tesla, and then his uncle got the time travel stuff, and he actually got turned good, and now he can hop all over time and make things seem, and you're whoa. So there's a further trap, even if you start to question the Q thing, if you want to fall into to that thing. And there's just all these, I did an episode called The Trinity of Trump, and talking about that exact sort of mind fuck, and how you can get trapped in that for a long time, because there's so many aspects to that rabbit hole that can get you believing in something that's very unlikely and irrational.
Well, I was watching a video, somebody put a video up, and it was, I guess, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was on some podcast or something, and some question had come through in the comments, right? And it said, if JFK Jr. is alive, touch your nose, right? So Robert F. Kennedy does this, he's like, and so then he has a little smirk on his face, right? And so I'm watching that, and there are people taking that to the bank. And look, folks, I hate to break it to you, okay? The Kennedys are one of the 13 bloodlines.
One of the 13, yeah. They're
okay?
Right.
I really hate to break it to you. But
sorry.
The other thing is that this would be like Lindsay and I, we're talking to each other right now. So when a guest and a host talk to each other, we don't focus a lot on the comments, right? A lot of times we'll have moderators. We might glance over once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah.
That question, I'm telling you right now, was a plant.
Yeah.
Okay?
It was supposed to come in at a certain time. Totally.
Exactly. He knew it was coming in. He did this, and he sent you guys off on a wild goose chase.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And you were on a very good point too, Lindsay. The truth community is not a cohesive community.
Right.
It's all over the map. Okay. I mean, you can't even get your own family to agree where to go to dinner at night, right?
Yeah.
Right. And yet we're to believe that this truth of community is together and it's rowing the boat in the same direction. Man, it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
It's so fractured and all over the place. Different belief systems, different ideas, different philosophies, different takes on things, and it's never going to coalesce. It's never going to coalesce. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's an individual thing.
Yes.
It is an individual thing. If you're going to rely on, if you think all of this is going to come together, you're going to be waiting a long, long time, and you're going to be very frustrated going to your grave, because it's just, it's not going to happen.
No.
But yeah, the whole thing with Q, PSYOP, Trump is nowhere even near a place in the pyramid of power where he can do anything. Okay? Nowhere even close. He is a puppet, and he's on the committee of 300's payroll. Period.
Right.
So again, I know I'm getting animated about it, but I swear I'm seeing more and more of it.
Yeah.
And from people that I really respect. And I really started to get disheartened. I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, so not to end the show on a sour note.
No. But I mean, I have this whole thing where I'm like, technically, like we were going to get really technical. We could be wrong. He could be an amazing savior sent from, some dimension and time traveling and whatever. And it's technically that could be true. So I technically have a place in my mind where I'm like, maybe. But the other 99% of my mind is like, no, that's really not likely or very plausible at all. But but really weird things have happened, and
he's not a time traveler.
No.
He's not playing 4D chess.
No.
In fact, I put a video up today where he's at Walter Reed Hospital with an entourage of 15 or 20 folks, most of them from the military. They all had their masks on.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Okay? So,
right.
And the thing is, and the other point I want to make is people are saying, well, talking about Fauci, right? And the masks, right. He doesn't fire Fauci because he has been told he can't.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
See, that's what you don't understand. If he were really the president of the United States and he really wanted his economy back, which he's worked to build up, and now it's basically in ruins, and that guy over there is the reason why it's smoldering in the corner somewhere. If it were me, I'd be, you are out of here.
Right.
You're fired, right? To use his own words,
right.
You're fired.
Right.
The reason why Fauci is still there is because Fauci is part of the deep state and he's part of the shadow government, and Trump can't do anything with him. And the day that Trump does do something with him, if that day happens, it's only going to be theatrics. And they will replace Fauci with somebody else that the Committee of 300 or the Royal Institute of International Affairs, or Tavistock, has appointed to be in that position.
Yes.
Okay? That's how it's going to work. Because if Trump were really the president and the buck stopped with him, he can end this entire charade tomorrow.
Right.
He can get up in front of the TV and say, no more masks. Everybody go back to work. Okay? We're done with this.
Yep.
But it goes on and on and on and on and on. And today or yesterday, whatever, he shows up in Walter Reed Hospital wearing a black mask. I think he had the presidential seal on it. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. Dude, and another really good tell, besides those really good tells, is that he was, anti-vax for ostensibly for a little while, and then he became president. Everyone's like, oh, he's finally going to do something about vaccines, and we're not. And in fact, he's going to oversee most likely the forced mandatory vaccination of everyone, right? That's a pretty good tell too, that he's not doing anything good.
Before he got elected, he had said that he was going to appoint RFK Jr. to a task force to take a look into the safety of vaccines. Remember that? I think everybody forgot about that.
Yeah. Everybody forgot because it's too convenient to hope that he's going to save you instead of you saving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's just like I said, read that book, folks, and everything will kind of crystallize for you, and you will understand. You will really, really understand how this world is set up. And if you do that, you'll get off a lot of this nonsense that is doing nothing but keeping you derailed. It's keeping you distracted, and it's keeping you into endless rabbit holes, keeping you running and running and running.
Amen.
Anyways.
Well, to wind things down, I wanted to first ask you, do you have anything coming up that's new or that's going on that you want to direct people towards?
Not really. It's just this whole COVID thing,
Yeah.
coronavirus thing has taken on a life of its own with me. It's I'm just so bent on trying to get people to wake up on this thing, to see it. So, I'll continue to do that. I've got a couple of more things for my folks who are watching, like, oh my God, you didn't talk about Paul McCartney tonight. I do have a couple of more shows coming up on that, and I got an interview coming up later this month on that. I'm going to be doing it with Vince Russo, who's a good friend of mine.
Cool.
Yeah, and Vince and I are going to get together. And let me see, that's it. But if you want to find out, where my blog is and where my YouTube channel is and all that stuff, just go to my main website. It's Sage of Quay, QUAY.com, and that's my hub website, and all of the links are there.
Okay, I'll update my link because I put your blog link in instead of that one, so I'll change that so people can.
Yeah, if you do sageofquay.com, everything's there.
Perfect. And then I always like to ask people what their final thoughts for the episode are, your sort of final words of wisdom, or what you want to leave people with as a last thought.
My last thought is that it is an individual journey, and stop spending so much time focused on the physical aspects of your existence.
Yeah.
The field is 50 yards physical, 50 yards spiritual. If you're spending too much time or 100% of your time on the first 50 yards, you are sub-optimizing what it is you're supposed to be learning in your life. And you're undermining your life purpose. So connect back to spirit and invest more time connecting back to God, the creator source, and doing your inner work, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters.
Absolutely. So glad that we agree so fully in that way. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to Mike Williams from Sage of Quay. Mike, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been a fantastic time to spend with you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks. So there is a baseline for all of existence, and it sits deep-rooted and almost flat-seeming to our overindulged senses. It hides behind our conscious mind and the many directions the monkey mind darts down in a given day. It waits for us to pause and breathe so we can look directly at it. But we let our imaginations race and run into every future worry or every past regret and unconcluded issue we created instead of noticing it, waiting. It guides even though we ignore it. It assures even when we pretend nothing can be right again, and it hopes that someday we remember. Hello, it says, I am waiting. Come home now. Come home. Do you hear it? Until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis-Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole sect, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dusted towels, no rags, straight melt dash. dust to ashes, turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose. My service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet, lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it, it's a secret. Now you're nobody, label somebody, trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.